Dr. Elena Santos stood at the edge of New Meridian's Central Plaza, her worn engineering kit hanging heavily from her shoulder. The alien city stretched before her like a dying star, its once brilliant energy conduits now pulsing with a weak, irregular glow. Above, 3 moons hung in the purple sky, casting long shadows across the crystalline spires that had made this Virillian colony famous across 5 sectors. "You are the human engineer." The voice came from behind her, musical and uncertain. Elena turned to face a tall, silvery figure. Like all Virillians, the alien's translucent skin revealed swirling patterns of bioluminescence beneath, though these patterns seemed agitated, stressed. "Senior Engineer Caxthor, I presume." The Virillian's inner lights flickered in what Elena had learned was their equivalent of a nod. "We did not expect someone so." He paused, searching for a diplomatic word. "Young." Elena bit back a smile. At 35, she was hardly young by human standards, but to a Virillian who could live for centuries, she probably seemed like a child. "I understand your hesitation, but I assure you my experience with ancient tech is extensive." Caxthor's bioluminescent patterns swirled with doubt. "The resonance engine has defied our best experts for decades. It is precursor technology, far beyond even our understanding. What makes you believe you can succeed where others have failed?" Elena adjusted her toolkit and gazed at the massive structure dominating the city's center. The resonance engine, a towering pillar of impossible geometry and pulsing light that powered the entire colony, or at least it used to. Now its light flickered like a candle in a storm, each pulse weaker than the last. "Sometimes," Elena said carefully, "we overthink these things. The precursors were advanced, yes, but they were also practical. They built things to last." A crowd of Virillians had gathered at a respectful distance, their inner lights creating a mesmerizing display of worried colors. Elena could understand their concern. Without the engine, their city would die. The atmospheric processes would fail, the shield generators would collapse, and the harsh environment of this world would reclaim everything. Caxthor led her to the engine's base, where a panel had been removed to reveal a maze of crystalline circuits and pulsing energy conduits. "Our diagnostics show cascading failures throughout the primary matrix. The quantum harmonics are destabilizing, and the temporal variance is..." Elena held up a hand, interrupting him. "May I?" She pulled an old, battered device from her kit. The Virillian's inner lights pulsed with surprise, probably shock at seeing such primitive technology. The device was simple, a resonance scanner she'd built herself, using principles that dated back to Earth's early digital age. She pressed it against the engine's surface and closed her eyes, listening to the soft hum it produced. "Impossible," Caxthor whispered after a moment. "Your device, it's reading the engine's core frequency." Elena nodded, eyes still closed. The precursors built incredible things, but they built them to be maintained. They wouldn't have made something that required their level of technology to fix. That would defeat the purpose. She opened her eyes and began unpacking her kit. "Your advanced diagnostics are looking for complex problems, but I think the issue is much simpler." A younger Virillian pushed forward from the crowd. Unlike the others, her patterns showed curiosity rather than skepticism. "I am Nixara, Junior Maintenance Engineer. What do you hear?" Elena smiled at the young alien's interest. "It's like a heartbeat, but with a stutter, like something stuck." She reached into the exposed panel, her hands moving with careful precision. "The engine isn't failing because of some complex quantum cascade. It's failing because something basic has been overlooked for too long." The crowd's collective bioluminescence dimmed, their version of holding their breath. Elena's fingers found what she was looking for, a crystalline node, barely larger than her thumb. It was vibrating at the wrong frequency, disrupting the engine's natural rhythm. "There," she said softly. 50,000 years of accumulated energy resonance, creating a harmonic disruption. Your advanced tools couldn't see it because they were looking for something more complicated." Caxthor's patterns swirled with disbelief. But how do we correct it? Our harmonic stabilizers. We don't need them, Elena interrupted, pulling out a simple tuning fork from her kit. The crowd's patterns pulsed with confusion at the sight of such a primitive tool. Sometimes the old ways are best. As she prepared to begin her work, Elena couldn't help but smile. Humanity might be new to the galactic stage, but they had something many older races had forgotten: the ability to see past complexity to find simple solutions. Now she just had to prove it. The engine's pulse grew more erratic, and Elena knew she needed to act fast. The real challenge was only beginning, and the fate of an entire city hung in the balance. Elena held the tuning fork steady against the crystalline node, her eyes closed in concentration. The ancient metal hummed against her fingers, sending vibrations through the engine's complex network of circuits. Around her, the gathered Virillian's bioluminescent patterns flickered with a mix of anxiety and fascination. "The resonance is all wrong," she muttered, more to herself than her audience. "It's like trying to tune a violin with broken strings." Nixara moved closer, her young engineer's curiosity overcoming the traditional Virillian reserve. But how can such a primitive tool affect precursor technology? "Sound is universal," Elena replied, adjusting her grip. The precursors understood that. They built their technology to respond to fundamental forces, not just advanced interfaces. She paused, frowning. "But something's blocking the harmonic flow. There's resistance where there shouldn't be." Caxthor's patterns pulsed with alarm. "Perhaps we should stop. If you destabilize the core further—" "Wait," Elena interrupted, her eyes snapping open. "Do you hear that?" The crowd fell silent. At first, there was nothing but the failing engine's irregular hum. Then, barely audible, came a new sound, a deep, rhythmic pulse emanating from beneath their feet. Elena quickly packed up her tools. The node isn't the problem, it's a symptom. The real issue is below. She turned to Caxthor. "Your city plans, how deep do they go?" The senior engineer's patterns swirled with reluctance. "The deep maintenance tunnels have been sealed for millennia. They're considered too dangerous." "They're exactly where we need to go," Elena insisted. She turned to Nixara, seeing an ally in the young engineer's curious patterns. "The engine isn't just failing, it's trying to tell us something. That pulse is like a distress signal." Caxthor's patterns flashed with authority. "Absolutely not. The deep tunnels are forbidden. The risks are nothing compared to what will happen if the engine fails completely," Elena finished. She gestured at the flickering lights above them. "Your city has days at most, maybe hours." Nixara stepped forward, her patterns showing determination. "I will go with her." "You exceed your authority, junior engineer," Caxthor warned, but Elena could see uncertainty in his patterns now. "With respect, senior engineer," Nixara replied, "we have tried your way for decades. Perhaps it's time to try something new." Elena hid a smile. She was starting to like this young Virillian. After several tense moments, Caxthor's patterns dimmed in resignation. "Very well, but you will take a security team, and at the first sign of danger, you will retreat." The deep maintenance access was hidden beneath an ornate panel in the engine's base. As Elena helped Nixara remove it, she noticed ancient markings etched into the metal, not Virillian script, but something older. "Precursor writings," Nixara explained, her patterns shifting with excitement. "But none of our scholars have ever been able to decipher them." Elena ran her fingers over the symbols. Maybe they weren't trying to be cryptic. Maybe they were trying to be clear. She pulled out her scanner again, passing it over the markings. "Look at the pattern. It's not just writing, it's a wavelength diagram." Nixara's patterns brightened with sudden understanding. "A maintenance manual." Exactly. The precursors didn't want their technology to be mysterious. They wanted it to be maintained. Elena activated her suit's environmental shields. They just needed someone to look at it the right way. The tunnel below was narrow and dark, illuminated only by Nixara's natural bioluminescence and Elena's suit lights. The security team followed at a distance, their own patterns betraying their unease. As they descended, the pulse grew stronger. Elena could feel it through her boots, a steady rhythm that seemed to call to her. The air grew warmer, charged with strange energy that made her skin tingle. "There's something familiar about this," she said, checking her scanner. "The pulse. It's not random. It's a sequence, like a heartbeat," Nixara finished, her patterns pulsing with excitement. Elena nodded. The engine isn't just a power source. It's alive in its way. And right now, it's sick. They reached a junction where 3 tunnels converged. Ancient machinery lined the walls, covered in millennia of dust, but otherwise remarkably preserved. Elena's scanner beeped insistently. "The pulse is coming from there." She pointed down the central tunnel, where a faint blue glow pulsed in rhythm with the sound. Nixara's patterns showed concern now. "Our histories speak of a chamber deep beneath the engine, the heart of New Meridian, but they say it was sealed for a reason." Elena checked her tools one last time. "Well, I think it's time we found out what that reason was." She took a step toward the glowing tunnel. Sometimes the only way to fix something is to understand why it broke in the first place. The security team exchanged nervous glances, their patterns flickering with indecision. But Nixara moved to Elena's side, her own patterns steady and determined. Together, Human and Virillion ventured deeper into the ancient tunnels, toward a mystery that had waited 50,000 years to be solved. The deeper they ventured, the stronger the pulse became. Elena's scanner readings were going haywire, the simple device struggling to process the ancient energies surrounding them. The security team had fallen further behind, their reluctance evident in their dimming light patterns. "Look at this," Nixara called out, her patterns brightening with excitement. She was examining a section of wall where the dust had fallen away, revealing more of the precursor markings. These were different from the ones above, more elaborate, yet somehow clearer. Elena approached, running her hand along the cool metal surface. "They're maintenance diagrams," she said, her voice filled with wonder. The precursors left instructions, real, practical instructions, right here on the walls. But why didn't our scholars see this before? Nixara's patterns swirled with confusion. Because they were looking for complexity. Elena traced the patterns with her finger. "These aren't mystical symbols or advanced mathematical formulas. They're engineering schematics, written in the most basic universal language possible, shapes and patterns that any technological species would eventually understand." A low rumble shook the tunnel, and the blue glow ahead pulsed brighter. The security team's patterns flashed with alarm, but Elena pressed forward, her mind racing with possibilities. "The engine isn't just failing," she said as they walked. "It's reverting to a basic operational mode, like a computer running in safe mode, trying to protect itself." Nixara's patterns shifted to show understanding. "That's why our advanced interfaces couldn't connect properly. We were trying to force it to operate at full capacity when it was trying to tell us something was wrong." The tunnel opened into a vast chamber that took Elena's breath away. The ceiling arched high above them, covered in crystalline formations that caught and amplified the pulsing blue light. At the center stood a massive cylindrical structure, its surface etched with more of the precursor markings. This was the source of the pulse, the true heart of the engine. "Amazing," Elena whispered. "It's a quantum resonance chamber, but look at the design. No complex circuits, no elaborate control systems, just pure, elegant engineering." The security team finally caught up, their patterns showing a mix of awe and trepidation. One of them stepped forward, weapon raised. "We should not be here. This chamber was sealed." To protect it, Elena interrupted, not to hide it. She pointed to a series of markings near the base of the cylinder. "Look at these warnings. They're not about danger, they're about maintenance schedules." The chamber was sealed because the Virillians of that time didn't understand its basic operating principles. Another tremor shook the chamber, stronger this time. Dust and small crystals rained down from above. Elena knew they were running out of time. "The resonance is completely out of alignment," she said, checking her scanner. The engine's been trying to compensate for centuries, but it can't anymore. That's why it's failing. Nyxara moved closer to the cylinder, her patterns pulsing with sudden insight. The markings, they're showing frequency patterns. Like your tuning fork, but on a massive scale. Elena nodded, already pulling equipment from her kit. The precursors built this to last forever, but it needs regular tuning, like any instrument. They probably assumed that any civilization advanced enough to find it would understand that. She laid out her tools, simple devices that looked almost primitive next to the ancient technologies surrounding them. The security team's patterns flickered with disbelief. "You cannot be serious," one of them said. "You intend to repair this with those." "Sometimes the simplest solution is the right one," Elena replied, setting up a basic resonance amplifier. The precursors understood that. They built their technology to respond to fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetics, sound. They made it accessible. Another tremor rocked the chamber, and this time the blue light flickered ominously. Warning signals began flashing along the cylinder's surface. "We need to work fast," Elena said, hands moving quickly over her equipment. "Nyxara, I need your help. Your natural bioluminescence, can you modify its frequency?" The young engineer's patterns showed surprise, then understanding. "Yes, but it requires intense concentration." "Good. I need you to match the cylinder's pulse pattern. Your light will act as a carrier wave while I try to realign the main resonance." As Nyxara began to synchronize her patterns with the ancient machine, Elena calibrated her amplifier. The security team watched in tense silence as human and Virillian worked together, combining primitive technology with alien biology in a way the precursors might have appreciated. But even as they worked, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something. The chamber held more secrets, and somewhere in its ancient walls lay the key to truly understanding what the precursors had created. The next tremor felt different, not a warning, but a response. The engine was reacting to their efforts, but whether it was accepting their help or rejecting it remained to be seen. The chamber's blue light pulsed erratically as Elena and Nyxara worked to stabilize the ancient machine. Sweat beaded on Elena's forehead, while Nyxara's bioluminescent patterns strained to maintain synchronization with the cylinder's frequency. "Something's wrong," Elena muttered, checking her readings. "The resonance is building instead of stabilizing. It's like the engine is fighting us." A violent tremor shook the chamber, sending one of the security team members stumbling. Crystals crashed from the ceiling, forcing everyone to dodge. The cylinder's warnings flashed with increasing urgency, its surface now glowing an ominous red. "The city's power grid is fluctuating," one of the security team reported, checking their communicator. Senior engineer Caxtho reports widespread systems failures. Elena's mind raced. They were missing something fundamental. Her eyes darted between her scanner and the ancient markings on the walls. "Wait," she said suddenly. "Nyxara, look at these patterns. They're not just maintenance instructions. They're telling a story." The young engineer's patterns flickered with curiosity despite her concentration. A story. Yes, Elena traced the sequences with her finger. The engine isn't just a power source, it's a guardian system. The precursors built it to protect something. She followed the markings around the cylinder's base. These aren't warning symbols, they're containment protocols. Another tremor, stronger than before. The security team's patterns flashed with panic. "We need to evacuate," their leader insisted. "The chamber is becoming unstable." "No," Elena said firmly. "If we leave now, we'll lose everything. The engine, the city." She turned to Nyxara. "Your people found this technology and tried to use it for power, but that's not its primary function. It's a guardian, and we've been using it wrong for centuries." Understanding dawned in Nyxara's patterns. The resonance, it's not failing, it's responding to a threat. But what is it protecting? Elena moved quickly around the chamber, her scanner probing the walls. The precursors were advanced, but they were also pragmatic. They wouldn't have built something this elaborate just to generate power. Her scanner beeped insistently near a section of wall that looked slightly different from the rest. There. The wall section was covered in more complex markings, but with a distinct pattern that caught Elena's eye. She pulled out her tuning fork again, ignoring the skeptical flickers from the security team. The frequency we need isn't in the engine, it's here, in these markings. She struck the tuning fork and held it against the wall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the markings began to glow, responding to the simple vibrations. A seam appeared in the seemingly solid wall, revealing a hidden chamber beyond. By the first light, Nixara whispered, her patterns showing astonishment. The hidden chamber was small, but contained something that made everyone's breath catch. A crystalline structure floated in the center, suspended in an energy field. Unlike the aggressive red warnings of the engine, this crystal pulsed with a gentle, calming blue light. It's a seed, Elena said softly. A precursor seed. The engine isn't just protecting it, it's nurturing it. Nixara's patterns shifted with realization. Our histories speak of the precursors as gardeners of worlds. We thought it was metaphorical. Another violent tremor shook the chamber. Elena's scanner showed critical readings from the engine. The containment protocols are breaking down. Without proper resonance, the seed's stasis field will collapse. She looked at Nixara. We need to restore the original frequency, or everything the precursors built here will be lost. The security team's leader stepped forward. How can we help? Elena quickly outlined her plan. The engine responds to harmonic frequencies. We need to create a resonance pattern that matches the seed's natural rhythm. She turned to Nixara. Your bioluminescence, can others join their patterns to yours? The young engineer's patterns brightened with understanding. Yes, but it requires perfect synchronization. It's something we rarely attempt. Then we attempt it now, the security leader said, their patterns showing determination. The other team members moved forward, forming a circle around the cylinder. Elena set up her equipment, creating a basic resonance network. It wasn't elegant or advanced, but it would serve as a foundation for what they needed to do. The seed's frequency is the key, she explained. Match your patterns to its pulse, not the engine's warnings. As the Virillians began to synchronize their bioluminescence, Elena struck her tuning fork one more time. The simple sound rang through the chamber, providing a baseline for the aliens to follow. Slowly, their patterns aligned, creating a beautiful display of flowing light that matched the seed's gentle rhythm. The engine's warnings began to fade, its angry red glow softening as it recognized the correct frequency. Elena watched her scanner's readings, hardly daring to breathe. They were either about to save the city or trigger a catastrophic failure. The chamber hummed with energy as ancient technology and organic light combined in a way the precursors might have envisioned millennia ago. Everything hung in perfect balance, but would it be enough? The chamber resonated with the combined frequencies of Virillian bioluminescence and Elena's simple tools. The seed's gentle blue pulse seemed to strengthen, responding to their efforts. But the engine's warnings hadn't completely subsided, they'd only changed their pattern. Something's happening, Elena said, watching her scanner's readings spike. The engine isn't just accepting the frequency, it's amplifying it. The cylinder's surface began to shift, panels sliding away to reveal an intricate network of crystalline veins that pulsed with energy. The security team maintained their circle, their patterns steady despite that obvious exhaustion. The seed, Nixara called out, her voice strained from maintaining the complex luminescent pattern. Its stasis field, it's changing. Elena moved closer to the hidden chamber, her scanner struggling to process the readings. The seed's crystal structure was indeed transforming, its surface becoming more translucent, revealing something within that took her breath away. It's not just a seed, she whispered. It's a database. The precursors didn't just leave us their technology, they left us their knowledge. A holographic display suddenly erupted from the seed, filling the chamber with swirling patterns of light and information. The Virillians' synchronized patterns flickered with surprise, but they maintained their focus. The engine, Elena continued, her mind racing as she interpreted the data. It wasn't failing. It was reaching the end of its protection cycle. It was time for the seed to awaken, but it needed proof that we were ready. Ready for what? The security leader managed to ask, their patterns showing strain. For the next step, the precursors didn't just build things to last, they built them to teach. Elena's hands flew over her equipment, adjusting frequencies to match the evolving patterns. They wanted to ensure their knowledge would be found by species who understood the value of simplicity, of working together. The engine's core suddenly flared with brilliant light, and for a moment, Elena feared they'd failed. But then she saw it. The red warning lights were gone, replaced by the same calm blue as the seed. The threatening tremors had transformed into a gentle vibration that seemed to resonate with the very foundations of the city. Look, Nixara gasped. The holographic display had coalesced into a clear image, a map of sorts, but unlike anything Elena had seen before, it showed not just New Meridian, but an entire network of similar installations across the galaxy. Each point pulsed with the same gentle blue light, connected by lines of energy that spanned impossible distances. They left these everywhere, Elena realized. Waiting for the right moment, the right combination of species working together. She checked her scanner one last time, confirming what she suspected. The engine isn't just powering your city anymore. It's connecting to others like it across the galaxy. The security team's patterns showed a mix of awe and uncertainty. What does this mean for our people? Their leader asked. It means, Elena said, smiling, that the precursors left us more than just a power source. They left us a future. But they wanted to make sure we'd find it the right way, not through advanced technology alone, but through cooperation and understanding. The chamber's energy shifted again, and new markings began to appear on the walls, not maintenance instructions this time, but what looked like star charts, technological schematics, and historical records. The precursor's legacy was revealing itself, triggered by the simple harmony they'd created. The city's power systems are stabilizing, one of the security team reported, checking their communicator. Senior engineer Caxtho reports all systems returning to normal, better than normal. Elena nodded, understanding dawning. The engine wasn't dying. It was evolving, waiting for the right moment to share its secrets. She turned to Nixara, whose patterns showed a deep appreciation of what they discovered. Your people tried to force it to work with advanced technology, but in the end, it responded to something much simpler: harmony between species, working together with basic tools and natural abilities. The chamber continued to hum with energy, but now it was a comfortable, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat that had finally found its proper pace. The seed's stasis field had completely transformed, becoming a permanent interface between the ancient technology and its new guardians. But as Elena watched the holographic display expand, showing more and more connected sites across the galaxy, she realized their work was far from over. They hadn't just fixed a power source or saved a city. They'd unlocked the first step in what promised to be an incredible journey. The precursors had left breadcrumbs across the stars, waiting for the right combination of wisdom and simplicity to find them. And somehow, a human mechanic with basic tools and a group of Virillian engineers had stumbled upon the first key. The news of what had happened beneath New Meridian spread quickly. Within hours, the chamber was filled with Virillian scientists, engineers, and officials, all trying to understand the magnitude of what had been discovered. But Elena noticed that none of them touched the engine or the seed. They kept their distance, watching the gentle blue pulse with newfound respect. Caxthor stood before the cylinder, his patterns showing a complex mix of emotions. We spent centuries trying to unlock its secrets with our most advanced technology, he said quietly, never once thinking that the answer might lie in simplicity. Elena was packing up her tools, each one going back into her battered kit with careful precision. The precursors understood something that I think we all sometimes forget, she replied. Technology is meant to serve life, not the other way around. They built these engines to last, yes, but also to teach. The holographic display continued to float above them, showing the vast network of connected sites. Each point of light represented another engine, another seed, another piece of the precursor's legacy waiting to be discovered. "The harmonics you've established," Nixara said, approaching with her patterns showing excitement. "They're holding steady. The engine isn't just stable, it's operating at levels we never thought possible." She paused, her patterns shifting to show curiosity. But why did it choose now to reveal itself? Elena smiled, closing her toolkit. "I don't think it chose anything. The precursors designed it to respond to specific conditions, not just technological advancement, but the ability to step back from complexity and see simpler solutions. They wanted to ensure their knowledge would be found by those who understood the value of cooperation over competition." The chamber had changed in subtle ways. The ancient markings on the walls seemed brighter now, more alive. The crystalline formations in the ceiling caught the blue light and scattered it in patterns that seemed to dance with the Varillian's own bioluminescence. "We've received reports from other colonies," one of the officials announced, their patterns flickering with amazement. "Similar engines across 3 sectors have begun activating. They're all connecting to the network." "A symphony," Elena murmured, understanding dawning. "Each engine is like an instrument in an orchestra, waiting for the right moment to join the performance." She turned to Caxtho. "Your people aren't just inheriting technology, you're being invited to participate in something much larger." The senior engineer's patterns showed humility, a stark change from his earlier skepticism. "And we have you to thank for showing us the way." Elena shook her head. "No, we all did this together. Human ingenuity, Varillian biology, and precursor wisdom. None of it would have worked alone." She gestured to her simple tools. "Sometimes the most powerful solutions come from the most basic principles." Nixara stepped forward, her patterns showing determination. "We'll need to establish research teams, coordinate with other colonies." She looked at Elena. "Would you consider staying? Helping us understand what we found?" Elena looked around the chamber, at the marriage of ancient technology and new discovery, at the faces of aliens who had become colleagues and friends. The universe had just gotten a lot bigger, and humanity's role in it had shifted in ways no one could have predicted. "I'll stay," she said, smiling. "After all, this is just the beginning." The precursors left these breadcrumbs across the galaxy for a reason. They wanted us to follow them, to learn to grow. She picked up her toolkit. "And sometimes the best way forward is to keep things simple." Above them, the engine pulsed with steady blue light, its rhythm now in perfect harmony with the seed's glow. The warnings and tremors were gone, replaced by a sense of purpose, of potential. In the end, it hadn't taken advanced technology or complex solutions to unlock the precursor's legacy. It had taken something much more fundamental: the ability to listen, to cooperate, and to understand that the simplest answer was often the right one. As Elena watched the holographic display show more and more points of light activating across the galaxy, she couldn't help but smile. Humanity might be young in the cosmic scale, but they had something valuable to contribute: the wisdom to know that progress didn't always mean complexity, and that the greatest discoveries often came from the most basic truths. The chamber hummed with energy, the engine's pulse now synchronized with hundreds of others across space. The precursor symphony was beginning, and its first notes had been played by a human mechanic with a tuning fork and a group of aliens willing to try something new. In the end, that was perhaps the greatest lesson of all. But the future belonged not to those with the most advanced technology, but to those who understood how to bring different perspectives together in harmony.